Perfect. So I think I will just get things started. So thanks for joining the breakout sessions, being so active and asking questions. That is perfect. And also giving some feedback to the companies, obviously. We are now back for the final session of this event, which is going to be a fireside chat, and we will be covering, well, a topic that is extremely interesting and important, because obviously for angel investors, it's about doing this very first investment and being the first believers in the companies. But at one point, we will hopefully get the chance to help our companies grow and succeed and make it to a Series A at one point. And this is exactly the topic that we've picked for this fireside chat. It's called From Seed to Series A, and that made it even more difficult, but therefore more interesting, or maybe it also made it easier. I'm not going to take anything away from the discussion. In this pandemic situation that we are still dealing with, I heard, but it's getting better slowly but steadily. We're optimists. So please give it up for two amazing speakers who are working with each other. On the one hand side, we have Barbora, who is representing the investor side and giving some insights from that. And then we have, and I hope that I'm gonna pronounce your name somewhat correctly, Mridula from Peppy. Please enjoy the session. And very important, if you have questions, please type them in the chat. The two of them will pick them up and answer all your questions. So this session is really about you and sharing knowledge. Enjoy.
Awesome. Well, hi everyone. Very excited to be here today, and great to see a room, virtual room full of female founders, and really glad that I have the opportunity to do this session alongside Mridula, who you're shortly going to see is absolutely amazing. So thank you so much everyone for inviting us. I think the plan for today is really for Mridula and I to talk a little bit about our journeys, although I have to say hers is much more interesting than mine, and then we can discuss what we've seen in the fundraising ecosystem sort of over the last 12 months, and perhaps we can give you some practical tips on how you could think about choosing the right investor for your round as a money raising one. So maybe over to you, Mridula, to give a bit of intro on yourself, and I can go right after.
Sure. Well, thank you, Barbara, and also to the whole Female Founders team. What a wonderful session to be invited to be a part of. My name's Mridula Pore. I'm CEO and co-founder of Peppy Health Limited. So we are based in the UK. And what Peppy does is we offer health support to people through life's big transitions. So if you think about episodes like going on a fertility journey, having a new baby, going through the menopause, this is where we've started. These are all very common episodes which can turn people's lives upside down for a period of time, but you may not necessarily be ill or sick in a medical sense, but you have lots of questions about things that are affecting your physical health, your mental health, your emotional well-being, and that's really what the Peppy platform is designed to do. Just very quickly, we're active in the UK at the moment, working with a range of organizations, everybody from investment banks to retailers and people in bank branches, and we've been around for a couple of years now.
Awesome. So maybe my 2 cents. So I'm Barbora Winczerova. I'm an investor here at Mubadala Ventures in London. Just to give you a little bit of background on us as an entity. So Mubadala is a sovereign wealth fund of Abu Dhabi. We're actually one of the largest institutional investors in the world. So we have $250 billion under management globally. And in terms of us as a group, we invest in all kinds of things from, acquiring and operating large enterprises globally, all the way to partnering with early stage companies and founders such as yourselves. So we set up the VC platform in 2016. We essentially started by launching a fund in the US. And then in 2019, we launched the Europe fund, which is where I'm part of. So in Europe, we have a 450 million fund, and we are completely vertically agnostic. So we can invest in any sector. Our sweet spot is Series B, but we can look earlier at Series A and also later at Series C, with the view of really being a lifecycle investor, so we can support our portfolio companies all the way from near inception to IPO or exit. We also have a MENA fund, we have a China strategy, so we are very much a global, truly global investment firm. In terms of maybe my personal background, I had a slightly reverse journey into VC compared to some other people, because I started my career at a startup. So I joined a company called Exactly, which was a B2B SaaS company founded over in the US. I was one of the early employees here in EMEA. I did a bit of product, bit of strategy, bit of everything. Then I became a management consultant. Then I became a technology investment banker. And then I joined the dark side of VC in January 2020. So I've been at Mubadala for nearly a year and a half now. And although it's been mostly in lockdown, it's actually been good fun. So I cover mainly the Nordic region for us, but also sort of the part of the UK and Central and Eastern Europe. I'm Slovakian originally, so that's how that comes into play. But I think enough about me. Mridula, you have a super exciting journey with Peppy. I mean, you've really gone from raising a seed round back a year ago when the lockdown hit, and now you are wrapping up your Series A. So you've done all of this pretty much remote. So it would be great to hear kind of your experience of what it is like fundraising in some of these very, very unusual times.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, I mean, Peppy is now coming up to about 2.5 years old. So just as context, so we had 3 co-founders and we met actually working at another health tech startup, but regrouped very quickly and saw the need that was there and started to develop the sort of business model of going through employers to reach populations of people who were going through these life transitions. And we raised our first external funding actually in 2019, so before the pandemic, which was a pre-seed round with some angels, and we were lucky enough to have Seed Camp come on board at that stage. But you're right, our seed round, we had started to get some initial traction, brought some clients live on board. We'd started with baby. We're getting very strong signals about menopause in the UK market and had started to build that service. We raised our seed round, well, we signed the term sheet in February of 2020 and finally closed the round in May. I mean, it's not really a long time, but I can tell you it absolutely felt like an eternity going from that pre-pandemic world into the full-on lockdown, which has obviously continued in some stages till now. And then, as you say, currently in the process of now wrapping up our Series A. So now effectively have done 2 rounds during the pandemic. I have to say it feels much better this time around than it did in those early days when really, I mean, the issue was nobody knew what was going on.
Exactly.
And it was a chaotic time because, I mean, we do work B2B. So we work with employers to provide these services to their employees. And of course, HR departments had basically, shutting the doors to any new conversations because they were trying to figure out how to get their staff all set up remotely. And so on. And we got creative. I mean, I can share maybe some of the stories if it's interesting. So we, when we realized that actually this was going to be an unlikely time to be bringing on new clients on board, although we had several contract conversations, but obviously their legal teams slowed down, their finance procurement teams slowed down, those launch dates started to slide. We thought, well, actually, you know what? The underlying need is still there. There are still people having babies. There are still people struggling with their menopause symptoms. What are other ways we can reach them? We applied for some government schemes, initiatives that were launched to support vulnerable people. We were lucky to be selected amongst a very small number of them. That got us, Peppy out there to people. It got us on the radar of different stakeholders. It got us user numbers, so it started opening up other channels. So it was a bit being creative for that, but while also, getting the fundraising across the line.
Yeah. And I have to say, it was a very kind of the confusing and hectic time also for VCs, right? Because effectively doing remote deals was pretty much unheard of prior to COVID, right? And 2020 was a big eye opener for many of us. So for instance, we at Mubadala, we've done 3 deals completely remotely. We invested in Oakin in France, in First Bet in Sweden, and in Storeblock in Austria. And for all of these, we never met the founders before, right? So it was entirely remote. And I think the learning is that it is perfectly possible to do deals remotely. Probably as a result, the deals happen faster than ever before. So, you can squeeze more sessions back to back. You don't have to travel. So that is definitely some positives. Now, my personal view is what you can't do is you can't really build the kind of relationships, the kind of personal relationships that you build with people when you meet them face to face. And I think a lot of founders and a lot of VCs are looking forward to going back to that. that being said, I think the bar for meeting founders in person and meeting investors in person for founders is just going to be a little bit higher now, right? So people are going to really think twice before they fly somewhere on the other side of the continent. But I think sort of net, it's probably going to be hybrid going forward, right? Where parts of the deal process are going to be done remotely and parts are going to be done in person. And hopefully we can arrive at a situation where it's kind of a win-win for both the founders and the investors. So that's where I hope the world is going to go.
I agree with you, because it's actually, as a founder, I mean, your time is fundraising is time out of the business. And so it is super efficient, especially to do those early conversations, virtually. Because you can do them quickly, and obviously it's a funnel. Things drop off as you go through.
Yeah, exactly.
So rather may do that as efficiently as possible. But the other thing I think I find it's quite a leveler, right? I'm based in London, and so meeting London VCs, I have access to a lot of them. It's very easy to meet them. Had I for the previous round had to go and meet funds who are maybe based in other parts of the UK, or you have a very different experience. There's a contrast in the experience if you're talking to international funds and doing it virtually, right? Whereas here, you're meeting everyone virtually, especially in those early stages. Everyone's in the mix, and presumably the same from the investor side.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, in 2020, we've seen a lot of US funds really very actively moving into Europe and investing here. And so clearly the access to finance or access to capital is becoming more global than ever before, which is great for founders and for female entrepreneurs and for everyone. For us VCs, it means it's becoming a bit more competitive, right? So we have to demonstrate our value add a little bit more. But net, it's great for the Europe ecosystem, obviously. So I'm just thinking maybe we can kind of bridge this here to one of the other topics that we wanted to discuss, and that is, how do you think about selecting the right VC partner for you when you're raising your funding round? And I would be really keen to hear your thoughts on this, Mridula. And I have some thoughts from the investor perspective, but maybe you can go first, and then I add my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, before we discuss it, I spent quite a bit of time thinking about it, and that there are a few things, of course. So one is you kind of have to do your homework and make sure you're talking to the right people. It sounds basic, but actually it's not obvious that, are you talking to the people who have the right check size, are looking for, the kind of deal that you're looking to do? You don't necessarily know that until you go into a conversation. So ask those questions early and make sure you're at the table with the right partner to begin with. Doing your homework could be incredibly helpful, building that list up in advance, and ruling people off it, because even if you've met them before, but actually they're not going to be the right partner for this stage, for example. Then I think, as you said, those personal relationships are really important. So the fit is really important, because certainly both with our investors, so Seed Camp at pre-seed and Outlet VC, who led our seed round, and our other investors as well, we have very good, strong relationships with them, and you need to be able to get on and work with people,
Sure.
And so you're kind of looking, well, certainly we have been as a founding team looking for the signals, like, are these going to be good people to work with? Are they going to be supportive? Are they going to, you don't want people who are going to be difficult at some point, but also you need the people who are going to give you that gentle push when they're seeing that there's a gap that needs filling or something needs accelerating. You don't want the people who are going to go, yes, keep clapping. You need to pick up the bum sometimes, quite frankly, and their investors should be the people who give that to you. And thirdly, it's sort of, what does your business need right now? And that can change over time. So when we were talking to Outward VC, a lot of the conversation was around health insurance, because we could see the potential for Peppy as part of the health insurance ecosystem. And so they invest primarily in sort of fintech, but have a pretty broad definition of fintech, and they've been very helpful. And actually, subsequently, we have gone on to work with some health insurance companies. Hopefully, we'll be in a position to announce one in a couple of weeks, a couple of months' time. But now, obviously, as the business has grown, then we see another gap emerging, and so that was a big part of our thinking around our Series A lead. How do we fill this capability, competency, knowledge gap within the founding team?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you kind of stole all my points in the sense that, yeah, so I think there's three things, right? Number one is definitely sort of the strategic alignment between the fund and the company's roadmap. Are you looking to scale geographically? If you are, let's say you're going to the US, maybe you want to partner with a US fund who can support you there. Are you looking to explore a new go-to-market strategy? Maybe you want to find a fund that has experience with this go-to-market strategy or can make useful introductions in a specific space. And you just have to think about, each company is different, right? You have to think about what is ahead of you and how does that fund fit into that. Then I guess the next step from there is looking at who are your existing investors and how is this new investor actually fitting into what you already have around the table. Because in an ideal world, you would want to get, a bunch of people who all have different value adds. So maybe someone helps with hiring, someone else helps with geographic scaling, someone else helps with enterprise introductions, right? So there's just different flavors of what different investors can do. And if you can find a group of investors that are complementary, it can be actually very, very powerful for your scaling as a company. So that is definitely there. One of the other things that we see a lot of founders looking for, especially in industries that are, or in sectors that are a little bit more capital intensive, is what is the ability of the fund to follow on, right? Because you will find funds that come in at Series A, then at Series B, they sort of take their pro-rata, but actually they don't have the firepower to back you all the way through. And this is more relevant for some founders than others, but if you are a founder in one of these industries, you should probably think about, is this a fund that can support me for the next 3 or 4 rounds, right? Because it saves a lot of time for you when it comes to fundraising if you have sort of strong internal interest to put additional checks. And then, I guess one of the things, when you look at who you have around the table, one of the things where we sometimes see slight issues or where people might want to be wary around is what happens when you take a strategic investor on board. So strategic investors can be great, but sometimes, quite often actually, they tend to have slightly different incentives or plans for the company compared to a traditional financial investor or a regular VC, and sometimes even to the founder. So there can be great strategic partners, but when you're choosing to partner with one, you should probably have very strong reasons as to why you're doing that, right? Because in the long run, it can play in various different ways. And then at the end of the day, it is about the chemistry between the founder and the specific investor, right? It's not even the fund. It's literally the person who is going to come and join your board or be a board member or a board observer. And I would really encourage, the least that a fund can do is to introduce you to their portfolio companies and let you as a founder actually to do reference checks, right? And I think all founders should try to do this, because what is the best way of getting feedback on a person or on a fund than actually from their existing portfolio companies? So this is something we definitely always encourage. So yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's can I see myself working with this person for 5 to 7 years and actually having fun, right? Because life is not that long, right? So you have to think carefully.
Absolutely, and I completely agree with you. The portfolio founder reference calls have been most helpful, especially if they've sort of a stage ahead of you, because then they can talk you through what that stage of that journey has been like with that investor. But also, as you said, the composition, how they thought about the composition of the board were some of the most insightful conversations that I had as part of the fundraising process.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the other things that I think founders can do is really try to get to know the investors ahead of the fundraise, right? So for instance, our sweet spot is Series B or let's say Series A, but I meet with seed stage companies all the time, because it works both ways, right? I prefer to get to know you a year before you raise or a year before we invest, and vice versa, right? You want to know what you're getting yourself into, right? And it can be, in all honesty, I can see how this can be very time consuming, right? So you have to be also careful not to spend too much time talking to VCs versus focusing on execution. But if you can select, a few funds that you actually like, and make sure you catch up with them once in a quarter or once in a few months to maintain that relationship and actually get to know them, this can be a great way of preparing yourself effectively ahead of your fundraise.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So yeah. So Mridula, what's in the what are the plans once you close your round? What's on the roadmap?
Like I said, we have. The last year being in digital health has just been explosive, right? And the demand for what we do has just gone crazy in the UK. So we, one of the reasons that we chose to trigger the fundraise was we could just see the opportunity out there, and wanted to be, didn't want to be hampered by our ability to grow and deliver to meet the market, and so that we could really ride the wave. So it's about, continuing to obviously build out our product, but also expand into other services for other segments of the workforce. And continue to drive our progress with employers. We're actually, this month is an exciting month for us because we're going to be going live with our first public sector employers.
Wow.
So we're actually going to be servicing some organizations within the NHS, supporting their frontline staff with menopause support. We have one insurance partnership live already. So we went live with Vitality in March. We will hopefully be doing another one very soon. And so it's about building, the team up to resource that. And as you said, so far we have been in the UK. Most of our clients are multinational. And so it's about building now the international roadmap for Peppy.
That's awesome. And I think you're making a good point. We are definitely in an environment where there's a lot of capital in the market, right? There's a lot of dry powder. There's a lot of VCs coming into the market. There's more new funds popping up all the time than probably ever before, right? So if you see, as a company, if you see that market momentum, this is the perfect time to raise. Like, the name of this event is "Where is the money?" Well, the money is there, right? you just have to kind of, pick up the courage and actually go and get it, right? Because investors are hungry, absolutely hungry. So I think it's a great time to be out there raising, either way.
Yeah. One of my observations though is that, the level of deal activity just seems to be crazy.
Yeah.
And so, yes, there's a lot of money out there, but people are also really busy.
Yeah, for sure. This is very true. This is very true, definitely. And we also need to, I think, we still have a long way to go in terms of making sure that we channel the capital to female entrepreneurs specifically. Because if you look at 2020 had a record activity in terms of fundraising, but actually 90% of capital still goes to all male founding teams. So there is still a glass ceiling that we have to break as a group. And the fact that there are groups like female founders and we are setting up these communities and we're raising awareness, that is a very important first step, I think. And then you have some amazing role model situations, like when Whitney Wolf Herd took Bumble to IPO at 31. This is that kind of an event that I think encourages a lot of people to realize, I can do this as well, right? And so can someone else. And then it's kind of a chain effect. So I think in a few years' time, we're hopefully gonna get there. I have high expectations. So